This is Duncan Milne. On the surface, just one of the thousands of avid sailors in Southern California. He runs a tight ship and sails as often as he can. He has the sunny optimism of someone who has seen stormy days.
The sun's out. It's a beautiful day. I expect we're going to have a fabulous sail.
But Duncan has something extra that sets him apart from most sailors, a wheelchair. However, he has not let his disability stop him from enjoying the sport and sharing that enthusiasm with others. He calls his program Access to Sailing, and this is his story.
I started it because I realized how important sailing was in my life and what therapeutic value it had for me personally. And I just kind of thought, wouldn't it be interesting to get other people who are in a disabled condition, in particular people who have just suffered an injury, and get them out on the boat and see what it does for them.
Like many others faced with a sudden, traumatic, life-changing injury, 16 years ago, this physical education teacher was unsure of his future.
I was very active, very physical, and suddenly, after an accident out in the desert on a motorcycle, I was not so physical. I lost the use of my legs, and it basically occurred to me that I have two choices. I can either roll with it, if you will, and make the best of it, or I can feel sorry for myself for the rest of my life. Well, that's something that I obviously can't do. So I decided that I'm just going to pretend nothing happened, and instead of looking at myself as being disabled, I think of myself as just sitting down a lot. So I've just decided that you know, I'm going to go on doing whatever it is that I need to do to make my life satisfying to me. And the beauty of this is that I get to help other people too. So that's the most satisfying of all. I started sailing about 20 years ago when I was in college, and I enjoyed it a lot, but I wasn't really an avid sailor. And it kind of came back to me 6 or 7 years ago when I started talking with friends about the idea of sailing, because I myself had never occurred to me at the time that, you know, I'm on the boat and go out. So after a few experiences, and I realized, wait a minute, now if I do this to the boat and I do that to the boat, you know, I can sail it myself. So I did it. I started out with a little boat and made certain modifications, not really thinking about, at that particular time, taking anybody other than myself out, but did this, that, and the other thing, and it became a project. You know, it was more than just going sailing. It was like, you know, a challenge in my life. Now, can I make this so it'll work for me? It was kind of like a metaphor for my whole life. And so it was one more challenge to overcome. And after fitting out a few boats to accommodate me, I thought, well, heck, if I can do it, then let's get some other people on the boat. And one thing turned into another, and before you know it, I'm back sailing practically full-time and really enjoying it. And people are sailing with me. And it's something that they do independently. It's not, you know, it doesn't require a person having legs to do it. It just requires a person having the motivation to get out and try.
After first getting approval and even encouragement from the cities of Newport Beach and later Long Beach, Duncan approached therapists at a local rehabilitation hospital in 1990, and it's been smooth sailing ever since for this nonprofit organization, Access to Sailing.
If you don't want to pick up one of these, pick up one of these. For information on sexually transmitted diseases, call Call Family Planning. 1-800-942-1054.
Listen.
This past year has been our wake-up call. What's important is we don't sleep through it. This is our chance to do something.
If there was more love and compassion, we could talk to each other. I could talk to you and you could talk to me, and we could get along.
We're all the same. All we have to do is talk to each other and communicate.
What people need to do is do something.
Our people, our city, our LA.
We are a rehab rehab unit within Saddleback Hospital, and so the patients that we typically see are stroke patients. We see some brain injuries, as well as spinal cord injuries. We have 3 patients today with us. One is an inpatient. We have a person who is an outpatient, as well as someone returning from the community, someone who's already been a patient. I guess we'll start with our inpatient. We have Nasser. Nasser is recovering from a brain injury. We have Jeff, who also is recovering from a brain injury, who is our outpatient. He's been with our program for a few years. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Chad, who had been with our program and has just been kind of invited back to join us with this particular sailing outing. And he, as well, is recovering from a brain injury.
Hey, Duncan.
Well, good morning. How are you? I'm Duncan. Nice to meet you. All right.
This is Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Good. Are you ready to go out today?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day for a sail.
It sure is.
Hi, Deb.
Remember this guy?
I do.
I was going to say, Chad.
Chad, how are you?
Been out with you once before.
Good, good. You're back. I like to see that. That's great.
We got Nasser.
Nasser?
Yeah.
How are you? Good to see you. Well, we're going to go down to the boat right now, and then we'll get all loaded on, and then we should be going out in about 15 minutes. So if you guys want to follow me, we'll just go down the ramp, and our boat is located right over here. We'll hop on, and we'll head off. So let's go.
They're aware that they are going to be asked to assist Duncan in sailing the boat, and they can have, you know, the ability to either steer the boat or work the ropes for the sail. So that part they're aware. But we'll go over it again with them just to touch base. But I think they know that this is going to be a working kind of crew versus a pleasure crew. So that part will be kind of a neat experience for them, I think.
Shall we prepare the boat? Now, when we are out there working, everybody's going to get to be a part of the crew. And I'm just going to run over briefly what we're going to be doing, but don't worry about it. If it seems confusing now, when we get out in the water, I'll explain it as we go along. What we're going to do primarily, after we get out and put both the sails up, we'll be controlling the sails with this rope, and this is called the sheet, the jib sheet. And this is going to pull our sail in and out depending on the direction we're going and how we are into the wind. Now, when I ask you to, what I'm going to want you to do is to take the sheet and to wrap it around the winch. And we use the winch to give us a little bit more leverage when we're working with the sails, because there's a lot of force on the sails, and it's too difficult to pull by hand sometimes, so we use the winch. So when I ask you to, what I'm going to say is let's put the sheet around the winch, and we always put it in a clockwise position. So when we pull on it, the winch will turn. Okay? Now, once we've done the pulling so that we've adjusted the sails the way we want it, then we'll cleat off the sheet. And that is, we'll tie it around the cleat. And that will be done simply by wrapping it like this, and then wrapping the sheet around the cleat so that it's tight. And I'll show you how to do that again when we're out in the water. So again, when I ask you to, remember, this is the sheet, this is the winch, and this is the cleat. And if you have any questions, be sure and ask me, because that's what I'm out there for. And I want everybody to have a chance to sail the boat. So we're not just going out for a ride, we're actually going to get involved in sailing, and that's what's going to make it fun today. So why don't we go ahead and load up now? And my suggestion is that we get Jeff on first. In 5 years, I have never had a person come down that wanted to go sailing that I couldn't figure out a way to get them on the boat and take them out. I've never turned anybody down. admittedly, sometimes it's more difficult than others to get people on board. Sometimes it's difficult just getting them down to the boat because of the facilities in most marinas are not necessarily equipped to handle people who are in wheelchairs or use walkers or crutches or canes. So it's sometimes more difficult than others, but we manage, and I've got lots of help, and that's what really makes things work, is the volunteers. So by having them here assisting and coming up with some rather novel ideas at times to get people on and off the boat, we're able to get everybody out on the water.
Along with volunteers who help out his crew, Duncan has discovered another willing source as well.
The therapists that come down from the hospital that bring the patients also serve as crew members. So they get a chance to sail too, and everybody learns how to sail, even the therapists. So they're involved too, and I do that primarily because it allows them to get familiar with the sailing component, and also it allows me to carry one more passenger because I don't have to take up room with a crew member from the outside, and it works marvelously that way. Now that we have both sails up, the front and the back, we're going to fall off and go away from the wind a bit, and then that's going to cause the sails to create lift, and that's going to make us go. So we're going to turn a little bit, and the boat's going to heel over a bit, that is tip slightly. And then we'll start our forward, we'll be on our way. What do you think, Jeff?
Getting wet over there?
It's good.
It's good? Great. This boat I use most often for people who have spinal cord injuries, where they don't have a lot of upper body strength. It's got a fairly large cockpit area and fairly high back, so that there's plenty of stability for them. And also it allows them enough room to move about so that everybody gets a chance to sail the boat. Let's look out and ahead, and we pick out a point, whether it be a building or a boat or something that's not moving. One of the islands is good, and just drive toward it. And when the boat starts to veer off to the right, just turn a little bit to the left, and when it goes too far to the left, turn a little bit to the right. It's not quite like a car because we're on a liquid surface, so it tends to slide around a bit. But it's not hard to get the hang of it. You're doing very well. Have you sailed a boat before? Oh, well, not bad for the first time. Now, when you sail, then I can take a break. And Jeff, you're going to work with Pat, and when I say, you let that go, and then Deb, you and Nasser and Chad, you guys can pull over on this side. And essentially what that's doing, by letting the wind blow the front sail over, we're letting off on this side and we'll pull it over on this side. And we'll let the wind kind of do it for us. Can you see?
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
We want to go, see that oil well over here?
Yeah.
Okay, let's drive for that. Jeff, you're doing a fabulous job. I see that we're almost there.
Yeah.
Another 15 minutes and we'll be there. And I hope somebody's home. That is, I hope there's some seals on the rocks. Sorry about that. The thing about sailing is sometimes you'll see people sitting in the boat at kind of in a solemn state where they appear to be kind of introspective and quietly enjoying what's going on. And then the next minute, because of the changing conditions, it can be a very exciting experience, and you can see that on their face as well. But it's the overall experience that I think really makes this such a wonderful experience.
Duncan is just superb because he can say and do what I can say and do so much better, because he's a living example of getting back involved in life and realizing that there's a lot more to life, really, in terms of getting involved. You know, once you leave these hospitals, sometimes you feel like, what can I do? And Duncan is a living example of that you can be involved.
That's my nephew Scruff reading that comic book.
And this is your nephew Scruff using his magic zapper. See that, dog?
Uh-oh.
Watch. And now I'll turn you into a mouse.
Hold it. Change him back. No dog deserves that. Now watch this. I'm gonna change this comic book into a special comic book that may help a lot of kids.
Hey, that's me.
Look inside. It's about the adventures you have coming home from school. It gives tips on what to do about bullies, or if you discover needles or drugs somewhere.
Uh-oh.
Or if there's trouble on the bus. And it shows what happens to Scruff.
What happens? What happens?
You'll see. For your free copy of this special comic activity book, write McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. That's McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. And you'll be helping me take a bite out of crime.
What happens? What happens?
For a lot of people, it's their first time out of the hospital. And often we take inpatients, so they're still in their formative years, kind of, or formative days, I guess, still trying to get their life back together. So they're kind of questioning what they can do and what they can't do and what experiences they should have. But by coming down, I think they kind of extend themselves. We have varying types of disabilities. Primarily, the three that come to mind that we see most on the boat are people with spinal cord injuries. That is, that they've either broken their back or their neck and have varying degrees of usefulness of their upper body. We also see a lot of people with strokes, and people with strokes obviously usually come with some portions of the one side of their body a little bit unusable. And then we also have people who have traumatic head injuries. Those are three of the most common disabilities. But we have people who are have lost their sight, hearing, people who have multiple sclerosis, and other types of disabilities. Some are seen and some are unseen. We have people who are recovering from drug and alcohol problems. And virtually anybody who can use sailing as a foundation, a little bit of a foundation to improve their life.
Lee lost the use of his legs in a car accident. John fell off a scaffold. Raymond was the victim of a drive-by shooting, and Mike suffered his injury due to heavy lifting. These four men are inpatients at Northridge Hospital Medical Center.
Every time we tack or go through the wind to change directions that the wind is blowing on the sails, we always let the one side, the lazy side we call it, completely off the winch as we sheet in or trim the working side. All right, well, we'll be getting into some more, a little more excitement as soon as we get beyond the inside portion of the bay. It's almost the same way every time. I'll get a group of people on the boat, and we'll start out sailing, and everybody will be real quiet because they're not really sure what they're going to be in for. But after a few moments, after we have the sails up and the engine is off, and we're just gliding along, everybody starts talking and they start getting into it. And in 15 minutes, everybody loves it. Go ahead and tack now. If you guys will throw that off. We'll make one more run down to the corner, and I think we can probably come up with some more breeze, and that might spark some anxiety, and that always gets a smile on the face.
I can do this every day. This is nice.
Yeah? One of the nice aspects about sailing is that when we get a group on the boat, they kind of gel as a team. We become friends real quickly because obviously we're in close quarters. We have to work together to make the boat work, and to do that, without people even thinking, it becomes a very therapeutic endeavor. Okay, let her rip.
That's nice. That's beautiful.
All right, good work. Occasionally we do have people that have sailed before, and they're amazed to find that they can still do it. And some of the most memorable moments are when people who have sailed before that have lost certain functions are able to get on the boat and actually get back involved when they thought that that was the end of the road for them in terms of sailing. So that's a revelation that I like to see. But on the other hand, people who have never sailed before, they're out doing something that they probably would have never done when they were walking, or when they could see, or when they could hear, or when they had full use of their body. And now they're doing it in spite of their disability. So I think in that regard, it's even more of a wonderful experience for them, because not only are they out here doing this, but they're realizing as they're doing it that, wait a minute, maybe I haven't lost as much as I thought I did. So it's great on both sides.
Therapeutic recreation is wonderful to help bridge the gap between therapy and home. And I think that's one of the major things, is to let the guys see what they can do, what they've learned already, but also to give them insight to what they still need to see. As John said, he needed more therapy. It's a good challenge. It's definitely part of their therapy.
Statistics show that 46% of all kids who smoke marijuana are inner city youth. Guess who the other 54% are? Call for a free parent's guide to drug prevention. 1-800-624-0100.
I don't want to get to the point where I feel it's necessary to charge anybody to go out. When we go out, it's free of charge, from access to sailing to the disabled community. And as long as we have people who are interested in donating, then I don't see any reason that we'll ever have to charge anybody to go out, because basically our expenses are covered, and that's all that we need. This to me is something that I do as a volunteer. And I do it because I personally feel that it's important to give back to society. When I stop and consider what a wonderful country we have and all of the things that I've gotten, it makes me feel that it's necessary for me to give back. And if I can help people reform their lives in just a small way by taking them out sailing, then that's a small price for me to pay. And I don't feel that money could ever compensate me in the way that the good feelings that I get in taking people out can. It's a funny thing, too. You would think that as much as I go out sailing every day, seemingly, that I would, after a while, get tired of it. But I get up every morning looking forward to when I can turn off the engine and put the sails up and just feel us just being swept along with the wind. It's such a personal, satisfying feeling that it's almost impossible to relate.
Despite having acquired 5 boats through donations rigged for various disabilities, Duncan does have hopes of expanding the fleet.
That would be my dream. Someday, to have a boat donated that's large enough to where I could get 20 people on board, get people back where there's a little bit more room to operate and put a little bit bigger equipment so that people can get more involved. Because the benefit of the program comes from the actual involvement, not just sitting and going for a ride, but actually getting involved in sailing the boat. When I was first injured 16 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of activities that we could participate in. It wasn't because that we couldn't, it's just that nobody had come up with an idea as to how to do it. So it's just a matter of putting our heads together and saying, this is what we want to do, how are we going to do it? And 9 times out of 10, we can come up with an answer. So sailing was just another one of those, the motivational focus. And it was a matter of looking at sailing and saying, you know, we can do this, let's figure out a way. And it's just a matter of putting it together. And this is the result of that. So I'm hoping that from this beginning, that we'll get lots of people, not just in access to sailing, but all across the country and the world, for that matter, out on boats. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience to sail. And I'm hoping that people that come on the boat who just have a chance just to sail one time with me from hospitals will, when they get out of the hospital, think about sailing and include that in their activities, as well as all the other sports that are open to them. Basically, what the experience boils down to, once they have done what they've done on the boat for several hours, when they get off the boat, they're back in their wheelchair, they're back at home, and they're thinking to themselves after the experience, well, you know, if I can do that, I can do other things. Maybe I should try this, that, or the other thing. And I'm hoping that it will encourage them to extend themselves and to try other things. It's not so much sailing itself being, you know, the experience that's going to turn their life around, but it's just one more positive experience that they have, one more reason to get up in the morning, one more way of saying to themselves that life is worth living and that we can do these things. And I want them to go home and think, well, you know, he does sailing and I went sailing, well, maybe I can do this, or maybe I can do that. And I want them to not so much rely just on the sailing experience, but get out and do things on their own. Maybe I'll never see them again. It may be the only chance I have to let them know in words and actions that life is not over, that they've got a lot of time on their hands and they may as well do the best they can with it. And that's what I want them to think about when they get off the boat. I want people to understand more than anything else that when an accident happens, that for their own good, they have to focus not on what they've lost, but what they've got. No matter how little they may think that is, it's enough to do whatever you want to do.